It's time for the Jesse T Show. The Brown Beauty is back on duty. It's me, Jesse T, on a Friday night in Southern California. We were headed out on the town, Dan the Man and I, for a special premiere, but we got sidetracked with some business a little bit later on in the day, which kind of precluded us from making it out to the show tonight. So we're back in the studio doing what we do best, having a good time on Friday night. And as you know, I've been asking for people to send me in their music, their original music, because I'm going to start highlighting music from new artists of all types, all kinds of different music here on the Jesse T Show as we try to help those starving recording artists get a record contract. You know what it's all about. So we're going to kick things off. Today's show is going to have a lot of fun because we're going to be talking about Friday the 13th. That's right. It's Friday the 13th, December 2019. Friday the 13th. Superstitions and cliches on today's show. The Jesse T Show, brought to you by Win-Win-Win Real Estate and Loan Firm. If you're looking to get a good deal on a great house, give them a call at 1-800-684-8699. Or if you're looking for a loan, no money down or a low interest loan or refi or hard money loan, they'll help you out there too. Win-Win-Win at 1-800-684-8699. Also brought to you by the Tapestry Network, Project Tapestry Network, one of the nonprofits that sponsor the Jesse T Show. We appreciate you donating to their causes. They're like an umbrella network, and they feed money to different networks like the Coalition Against Human Trafficking. And you know, we have to fight that epidemic and horrible, evil thing that's happening in our world, in our country, in our city and towns today. And that's human trafficking. So we appreciate our sponsors for sponsoring the Jesse T Show. Starting off the show right now, a brand new song from Brett Hunt, who wrote and produced this song. And it's called 99 Cents, featuring the first, hopefully of many to come, of new artists looking for that big deal. And if we can do something for you here on the Jesse T Show, we certainly want to try. So let's listen to a little bit of Brett Hunt and 99 Cents right here on the Jesse T Show. The Brown Beauty is on duty.
I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving,
Grew up in the 303, thinking we bad and running the street. House on the south side, right on Broadway. Grandma struggling just to make a pay. Fam was always hustling for $1. Swore I'd never be living in squalor. Rolling with liquor, always drinking. Gramps always drunk and it got me to thinking. Mom split when we was young. Then she died with a cancer in her lung. Kicked, bullied, feeling down. Couldn't take this life and I wanted to drown. Tried to end it all, life was done. Found me in the basement where I hung. Grew up dreaming and trying to be free. Couldn't live right, just wanna be me.
I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving,
Moved to Cali, dreaming of stars, looking for fame and fancy cars. Told many times that I'm crazy dreaming, living life, planning and scheming. Tired of hanging with broke ass fools, never playing by the same old rules. Trying to be the big bad rapper, hit the bottom of life and shattered. Fucking sucks, ain't got a job. They look at me and think I'm a slob. Sleeping on the hardwood floor, wishing and praying that I had a little more. Couldn't break my fucking chains. Very true, it pours when it rains. Hustle on break, then they see it was 99 cents that set me free.
I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving, just 99 cents. I remember way back when I was surviving,
3 years back I made the choice. I stood up, found my fucking voice, started living and pushing it over, feeling the weight off my shoulders, stepping one in front of the other, no looking back, hungry for another, living life the way I always wanted. My past defines, but I'm not really haunted. Not gonna lie, it was a struggle. Life ain't easy on bare knuckles. Let me share one little clue. Your life can be lived just for you. Always remember the haters, even the friends that I now call traitors. I realized what it takes to be free. I needed to start believing in me.
I remember way back when I was surviving.
That's a brand new music there from recording artist and rap star Brett Hunt, and called 99 Cents on KTNT Radio and TV Network. The Jesse T Show, always looking for new artists to expose live right here on the Jesse T Show. So if you are a new artist or you have a recording artist that you know and they want to get some exposure here on the Jesse T Show, hey, send in their audio file to us at our website, which you can check us out at www.jessetorero.com. That's the way that you enter the Jesse T Show. It's one that gets to everywhere, and our 25 top social TV media networks like Facebook Live, Instagram, also to YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn. That's www.jessetorero.com. Or you can send it to my private email at jessetorero@gmail.com. jessetorero@gmail.com for the Jesse T Show. Always looking to highlight brand new artists like that. Brett Hunt at 99 cents. It's Friday the 13th. And you know what that means on Friday the 13th? It's superstitious time. That's right, my friends. Superstitious time. You know, Stevie Wonder style, right? Saying hi to Samantha, Cindy, and Dean who have us on. We're going to start talking about superstitions and cliches. Since it is Friday the 13th, we might as well get going on this right now on the Jesse T Show. Superstitions. And cliches. How did they start? We all use them every day of our lives. But do you know what they really meant and where they came from? That's the fun thing about it. And since it is Friday the 13th, the day of evil, as Dan the Man says, I thought it would be really great to kind of get down to the nitty-gritty and the real deal of what and where and how cliches and the superstitions of our culture actually began. Ready? Oh, give it to me. The Jesse T Show, every day of the week from 6 to 7, and sometimes we start just a little bit later. And we invite you to join us as we have fun today talking about superstitions and cliches. some of that flute. That's music by Rhythm Gitan, one of our producers of some of the soundtracks that we use here on the Jesse T Show. And it's good to have you along with me, Jesse T. Let's get right into it and start talking a little bit about cliches and where they came from and superstitions. Now, you know, a cliche is something that you and I use every day of the week. And by the way, I'm going to tell you about how Friday the 13th started. You'll never be able to guess unless you know the story. It's really very interesting. And we'll be talking about that in a second. You're going to have some good bar trivia. You know, I used to call it cocktail trivia. Good for nothing, but just opening conversations. But really, there's a lot of meaning behind some of the things that we say every day, and we don't know why we say them. So if you're working like on a big project for school and you're almost done, you might say, I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, how many of you have said that? That image created this idea in your head, right? I see the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, we call that an expression or a cliche. And it was first used many years ago. It sounded very clever, and it still kind of is, because lots of people started using that same phrase. Now it's been kind of evaluated and meshed and moved into our everyday common language. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. So, you know, it's something that started a long time ago. Well, how about stop and smell the roses? It's a cliche, a way of saying, whoa, 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 slow down, my dear young pup. Slow down, champ. Enjoy life. Notice the beauty along the way. Stop and smell the roses. Have you ever used that cliche? I know you have. It's an everyday passage in our everyday language in America. And it's really amazing. But that's what it meant, to slow down and smell the roses. How about, I'm as happy as a clam? Now, you might talk to older people that would say that. The younger generation, millennials and Gen Xers, probably don't use that much, but certainly the baby boom generation that I was from, you always heard that, I'm as happy as a clam. What the heck? Is a clam happy? I never even knew if a clam was sad. I never even knew if a clam was upset. All I know is a clam opens and shuts, and they taste pretty good when you eat them, right? But I'm happy as a clam. That cliche started a long time ago. And as I said, the older generation and the baby boomers might know a little bit more about that. Doesn't make much sense, though, if you think about it. Happy as a clam? The original phase was really happy as a clam at high tide. That's right. Or high water, like when you're out in the ocean at Pismo Beach up north, or you have a long stretch of beach and you can dig for clams. People used to dig for clams at low tide when the water was way out. So the clams are safer in the deep water of high tide. That's why a clam was happy at high tide, because he couldn't get eaten. Yeah, and that follows with something that I learned a long time ago. This little boy and his dad, they were walking across the seashore right there, right? And there were thousands and thousands and thousands of crabs on the seashore trying to get back to the ocean, right? Thousands, I mean, so many of them. I mean, as far as your eye could see. Sort of like when the Minion run here in the Pacific Ocean at night, or like when there's a lot of sea creatures and crabs on the shoreline. You'll see that in the west here on our coastline. And so this boy, he's about 8 or 9, 10 years old, was walking with his dad. And his dad was talking a little about life to his son. And his dad was picking up these clams, or these crabs, and looking at them and throwing them as far as he could in the ocean. As far as he could, right? And so he'd pick up another crab and throw it as far as he could. They'd walk some more and pick up another crab and throw it as far as he could. And the little boy said to his dad, he said, "Dad, why are you doing that? And you can't, why are you doing that?" And he said, "Well, I'm doing that to save the life of this clam, or this crab." And the boy thought about it for a second as his dad picks up another crab and throws it out into the ocean. And the boy thought about it and said, "Dad, what does it matter? Look at all the crabs. You can't save them all. You and I, we can't save them all." And his dad said, "Pick up that crab right there and throw it as far as you can in the ocean. Look at that crab before you throw it. And look at all the other ones around. Now throw that crab as far as you can in the ocean." So the boy picks up a crab, looks at it, looks at all the crabs trying to get back to the ocean, and throws it as far as he can, and poof, it hits the water and disappears in the beautiful Pacific Ocean. And the little boy says, "Wow, look, I can't save them all, Dad." He said, "Yes, but you could save that one. And doesn't that matter to that crab?" Sort of what life is like, right? You can't save them all, but try to save somebody. Here's some more cliches. A watched pot never boils. Now, have you ever heard that one? My grandmother used to say that. Simply means that if you concentrate so much on something, you want it to happen, it seems as it never will. Now, go watch a pot of water and watch how long it takes to boil. If you walk away, it starts boiling faster. I swear to God. I swear to God. Right? Yeah. These cliches are kind of cool. I'm hungry as a bear. Arr, arr, hungry as a bear. Which kind of creates a funny image, like Yogi Bear robbing picnic baskets. "Hey, boo-boo, where are the picnic baskets? I'm hungry as a bear." But Yogi, the ranger. Well, hungry as a bear means I'm just simply starving. Okay? Another one, laughter is the best medicine. How many times in your life have you used that? It means that things are really going awful. It sucks, and I can appreciate that, right? I know you can. I certainly can. I'm no different than you. Why should I be? I'm like everybody else on the 7.5 billion people on the planet Earth. What makes me so special, right? Well, focusing on something funny can often make you feel better. And that's why I'm doing today's show. Kind of a lighthearted show. All the craziness in D.C. and around the world and in all of our lives. I thought, well, I'll do something a little lighthearted and fun. Wear your heart on your sleeves. My mother used to say this all the time to me. If you show your emotions easily, that means you wear your heart on your sleeve. She said, "Jesse Glenn," that's my middle name. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't wear your heart on your sleeves. And it came from this. During jousting tournaments in the Middle Ages, a knight showed his affection for a lady by wearing a token from her on his sleeve. Shakespeare used the phrase in his play Othello, "Wear your heart on your sleeves." Shakespeare's plays produce many phrases now considered cliches because of overuse. Shakespeare has always been a man that could put words together, and history has shown we love his phraseology. If you have a big appetite, your parents might joke that you'll eat us out of house and home, and that's from Henry IV. It's Greek to me, is from Julius Caesar. It now means it's confusing and I don't understand. Say hi to Roger Anthony. Thanks a lot, Roger. If someone calls you an eager beaver, right? You ever seen a beaver eat a tree? It's an amazing thing. They just, they are unbelievable. Want me to do that again? Okay. It doesn't mean you like gnawing on trees, guys. It means you are energetic and you're keeping busy. Often volunteering, doing work, doing things with your family. You just get a lot done. Good writers avoid using cliches, preferring to make up fresh expressions. And can you put the examples above in your own words? Try it sometime. It kind of stretches the brain so the active nerves get together and a couple of more, and then we'll start talking about some other things, superstitions. Now, this one's been said many times before, and I think you might like this one. They lived happily ever after. Yeah, cliches. We all use it, right? Well, it's predictable. All right? There's something comforting about saying they lived happily ever after. It's fair. It's a cliche to say that the story is just the tip of the iceberg, right? When it comes to cliches. And as you practice writing more, you may want to avoid them like the plague. But, cross that bridge when you come to it, right? Let's talk about some superstitions right now, and some crazy superstitions that we think are where'd they come from? Well, here's one. The surprising origins behind common superstitions are also very fascinating. Like the ancient Romans, and I love Roman history. I really do. I believe America is following a lot of the same paths as Romans. The ancient Romans believed mirrors held fragments of our souls. You didn't know they had mirrors in Rome, did you? Yeah. And that shattering them, therefore, represented a crack in our souls. And when the Middle Ages started, after Rome fell, the Dark Ages and then the Middle Ages, mirrors were very mysterious to people. Okay? And a Greek astronomer said that he was the one that started wishing on a star. And the reason why they started wishing on stars in Grecian times, in Greek times, they thought it would prove that the gods were spying on us, that they were watching us, that were looking over us. Another terrific one was if you broke a mirror in Rome and you broke that mirror in somebody's house, or you break a mirror in somebody's house, you're messing and breaking their health and well-being. So don't ever break a mirror in somebody's house. Social etiquette of blessing someone after they sneeze. Yeah. Right? Sneeze. Blessing them after they sneeze, from ancient belief that one could sneeze out the badness of your soul. That's where that one came on. Yawning and sneezing were both considered high-risk activities during the time of Romans and Greeks because, when you sneeze, your heart stops for a second. There are a lot of ancient beliefs in general about a sparable soul, and it could separate from a belief period of time. When you dream, your soul is out of your body, so it can get back in. If you're sneezing, you can get back in. Okay? So this is kind of how things started. And some more superstitions are ancient Egyptians believed that if you open an umbrella, because umbrellas for royalty, they were for royalty only. And if you open an umbrella and you created shade that was sacred, royalty, the umbrella, creates the shade, which is sacred. Opening one indoors was considered an insult to the god of the sun, and that's Ra, the sun god. And he's the omnipotent one in ancient Egypt religion. Ra, the sun god. Ra. Okay? So you never wanted to open an umbrella inside because you're pissing off the god of sun. And that's what you don't want to do. All right? No way. Pennies were some of the first items treated as representatives of good versus evil. Because, you see, copper was a very, very precious metal in ancient societies, such as copper. They were gifts from the gods, actually, because copper was hard to find. And it was meant to protect humanity. And therefore, coins such as pennies had lucky properties. However, these same societies also believed in an ever-present battle between good and evil forces. So heads up pennies came to be associated with luck, while the opposite, heads down, became associated with less luck. Of course, black cats, we know, came from the Middle Ages, and therefore they tried to exterminate them all in the Middle Ages. Back in the 14th century, they tried to kill all the cats. By the 16th century, hysteria over witchcraft was at its peak, and so Europeans associate all those black cats. Boy, they went looking for them. And, if you were a black cat, your life was limited. The superstition that walking under a ladder is bad luck stemmed from the fact that when you're under a ladder, it's a triangle. And the ancient Egyptians felt that walking under a triangle is the greatest, most powerful geometrical configuration of lines. And walking under a triangle, like their pyramids, represented power. So walking under a ladder is bad luck. Could stem from the shape of the ladder. In terms of that, it means you were disobeying, or you were disrespecting the power of the triangle, which is the power of their God. Divine dinner parties. This is why we blame 13 as a bad number. If you look at the Last Supper, you'll see that Judas Iscariot, the man to the right of Jesus in the middle, the man who betrayed Jesus Christ. If you ever get a chance, you might want to read the book that the church threw out of the King James Version, and that was the book of Judas Iscariot. It's a completely different version of what happened to Jesus Christ. Anyway, Judas Iscariot, the 13th guest to arrive at the Last Supper. He was basically late. And in the New Testament, so that represented 13 as kind of bad luck. And Loki, from the Norse mythology, the Vikings, introduced the word to chaos when he arrived as the 13th guest at a divine dinner party and tricked a fellow guest into shooting the god of joy with an arrow. Judas can also be blamed for the notion that spilling salt is bad luck, because when he came there, he was late, and then he knocked the salt shaker over. And if you look at Leonardo da Vinci's famous painting of the Last Supper, Judas Iscariot, the aforementioned, and the unlucky 13th guest at the dinner party, is depicted knocking the salt over on the table with his elbow, and that's why salt was considered bad luck. So throwing salt over your left shoulder supposedly blinds the devil and counteracts any bad juju, baby, from occurring on you in the first place. Okay? Got it? All right. Knocking on wood is a tradition that stems from ancient pagan cultures. Belief that the spirits and gods resides in trees. These tree-hugging people out there in today's society probably will believe that. But I do believe that trees hold history, and I do believe in trees having a life. All things on earth had a life, And the reason why the four-leaf clover came out is because that's supposed to be the plant that was taken out of the Garden of Eden when Adam and Eve were expelled from paradise. So these are just some of the superstitions I thought were kind of cool and kind of fun to look at in terms of the superstitions and cliches on Friday the 13th. But I did promise you that I was going to talk a little bit about Friday the 13th and how that came around. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about that, and it's pretty amazing, kind of what happened there in terms of how Friday the 13th came around. It's a fun story because it really came with death and destruction, and they have been trying to find what they were looking for ever since then. But before I do that, I'm going to tell you, have you ever heard somebody say, it's raining cats and dogs. I'll tell you where that came from. It came from medieval England. When it was raining very, very hard, what would happen would be the people that built their houses usually into the side of a mountain or a bank, and they would put thatch on the roof. Thatch, real thick thatch. Thatch is just, branches. And they intersperse it like this and create a waterproof, tight roof with thatch. And so when it was raining cats and dogs, what they would do is what used to hang out in the thatch was mice and rats and birds, because they would nest in there, okay, on the outside. And so to solve that problem, they would have their cats. They would get cats and dogs, and the cats especially would go up into the thatch roofs, and they would attack the mice and the rats, and they would kind of live up there too as well. And so the dogs, because the huts were usually back up against a ravine, so the dogs could get up there too. Cats can just climb. So when it would be raining, because the way that they would do this thatch, they would put the thatch down and put a layer of mud or substance like dirt or mud over, and the thatch and mud and thatch and mud. So you can see how slick it was. And so you'd be sitting in your front room. You'd be sitting in your front room, and all of a sudden it'd be pouring rain, and the cats and the dogs would be slipping off the roof. And so they would say, "Look, it's raining cats and dogs." That's how that started. And one more, just for the heck of it, because I think you'll find this fun and interesting, in that everybody's had somebody in their life that they had to bury after in a cemetery. And so in Ireland, especially in Ireland and Scotland and in the English countryside during the Middle Ages, the kings, now this is interesting, the kings, the aristocracy, had their plates and their drinking cups made out of the finest hardwood oak or stone, one or the other, okay? And the peasants they couldn't do that, because wood was very, 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 very important to surviving. So they couldn't make wood. They had to use wood to burn and to build, okay? But the aristocracy could do whatever they wanted to do. So the peasants would make their drinking cups and their plates and their utensils out of pewter. Everybody kind of knew how to mix the different metals and make this pewter. And so then they would mold their cups and drink them. And after a while, what would happen is when they would put the beer or the liquor in the pewter cup, the alcohol would mix with the chemicals in the pewter, and basically you would poison yourself after a long time of drinking out of these pewter cups, and it created a poison that would basically knock you out unconscious. And so what would be taking place is guys would be coming home from the pub or the local town where they were drinking, or even out at their home where they were drinking, because you drank ale or some sort of liquid so that you could keep it clean, because water was hard to come by, and water was difficult to keep clean after a while. So they would add liquor or wine or fermented something would last a long time. Okay. So you would be walking along after you had a bunch of drink, and you'd sit down on the ground and you'd fall over and you'd be unconscious. And so after a while, you'd be laying there for a day unconscious, and they would come by and pick you up and throw you in a wagon. And they would then take you and see if you were breathing, and your heartbeat was very faint, and they didn't have medicine and doctors like they did today. They couldn't hear any breath or anything. So they would bury you, because you can't have rotting human bodies laying around everywhere. And so in the middle of the night, you would hear the scraping from the cemeteries of people that woke up after this poison intoxication wore off. Many of them would wake up, and they would be scratching and banging at the top and the sides of their wood casket. And of course, they would eventually die, but you would hear these howling sounds coming from the cemetery. That's why cemeteries were farther away, and that's why cemeteries were spooky, because you would hear these scratching and people banging, yelling, and howling, right? And so they thought it was ghosts or something. But in actuality, what happened, they figured out that these were people that were still living and they buried alive, but because they didn't know that they were unconscious. From the drinking. They didn't understand the chemistry and the science, of course. So every time from that point on, when they would find a body laying on the side of the road, oh, that's John, the blacksmith? Well, we know where he lives. They'd take him home to his house, and they would put him on the dining room table. And they would leave him there. The family would leave him there for like 3 or 4 days. And they would wait. They would wait for him to wake up. And if John the blacksmith woke up, everything was fine. If John the blacksmith didn't wake up after 3 or 4 days, they would then bury him. Okay? So that's where the idea of awake came. When you have awake, you are awaiting for an awakening of the person that you think might be dead. And that's where the concept of awake came. Did you know that? Yeah. Simple, huh? Friday the 13th started off like this. In the year 1327 of the 14th century, the King of France was broke. So he went to the Pope and they made a deal. And the Pope and the King's deal was this. The King of France wanted to get all of the treasures and secrets of the Knights of Templar, the Knights Templar. Now, I am a Knights Templar, okay? And I'm knighted a Knights Templar. And the Knights Templar wouldn't give him anything just because he was the King of France, and he wanted to be the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, or Freemasonry, or the Masonic ideology, Masons. And de Molay, the great Grand Master of the Knights Templar in 1327, said, no, you've got to do it the way everybody else does it. And at that time, that means you have to give up everything that you own. You have to commit to a life of abstinence. You have to get up all your riches and land and go through the degrees and work your way up. And you might someday be the Grand Master or the worshipful Grand Master. There's no guarantee. And so he didn't want to do that, man. He was the King of France and he was broke. So the Knights Templar were Christians, except their Christian cross is round. Okay? Round with round curves in the cross. It's round. And it sort of looked like an octagon or a satanic sort of concept, or a Jewish, which they thought Jews were satanic at that time. Okay? But it wasn't. It was a Christian cross. Remember, the Knights Templar fought the Muslims. The Knights Templar created banking for the first time in Europe. They protected the road to Jerusalem. They had the Crusades, like 9 of them. It started in 900 AD. Okay, so they've been around a long time. Very powerful. Very powerful. And they had many treasures and secrets. And one of the treasures that the Knights Templar has is the the cup that Jesus Christ drank out of at the Last Supper. Okay? The chalice. Okay? And that is part of the treasures and the secrets of the Knights Templar. And they held the secrets of what really happened to Jesus Christ. Okay? In terms of his lineage. All right? Because he had a lineage. So the King of France went to the Pope and said, they're Christians, but they're not Christians the way we're Christians. Our cross is like this. Theirs is round. And he convinced the Pope, because he said, if I can get some of these treasures, buddy, I'll split them with you, the Vatican. And the Pope said, of course, because, the Vatican's just a giant corporation of corruptness and money, greedy rat bastards, right? So the Knights Templar, the King of France was given the order to capture all of the treasures of the Knights Templar in 1327. So what he did, they made a plan, and they arrested de Molay, the great Grand Master of the Knights Templar, a Freemason, great Grand Master of Masonry too. And they arrested him and tortured him, and he wouldn't give up the secrets. They tortured him for a good period of time. Middle-aged torture. Can you imagine? In the 14th century. So they also then went through the countryside, which is now Portugal, France, a little bit of Germany, all of that area in there, and coming down into a little bit of Italy as well. This was all owned by the Knights Templar, or they controlled the power of all this. Okay, very wealthy, and the Vatican wasn't getting any of this money. They weren't taxing them. They couldn't tax them. Okay, so they waged war in 1327 on the Knights Templar, and they beat them, and they arrested them and threw them all in dungeons and tortured them all, trying to find the secrets and the wealth, and they could never find anything. And because what happened was that when de Molay was arrested, he was the first one, the great Grand Master of Masonry and Knights Templar out of the in Europe. When he was arrested, what happened was they sent about 300 ships out of France, where D-Day and Normandy is, to Scotland and England. And then from there, they sent about another 200 ships from Scotland and England across the Atlantic to the New World. And that's why you have treasure hunters finding ancient Masonic temples and Masonic symbols all over the northeast of America. That is amazing. So they think that some of the treasures at the Knights Templar, the chalice, and other things were buried or hidden in the New World in 1327. So they arrested them all, the ones that were left, which was pretty much all of them, and they killed them all. Never got any money, but that ended the power, absolute power of the Knights Templar. And that's when Masonry went undercover. And it went undercover for several hundred years. And it proliferated in England and Scotland, and then back into France. But that's when it went undercover. So guess what day that was? Friday the 13th in 1327. Friday the 13th became a day, you talk about infamy, that has never been forgotten, but maybe forgotten to those that did not know. Friday the 13th, 1327, is why Friday the 13th is considered bad luck, because of that tragic overpowering and greed of the King of France and the Vatican. Now you have the whole story, and you're straight on the point. The Jesse T Show, every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock or thereabouts. Broadcasting live on the air and everywhere through Southern California, the United States of America, the greatest country ever created by God and man, and the world, bringing you the real truth. Lots of fun too. Lots of fun we do with you. The Jesse T Show. Tell a friend. Check it out. www.jessetorero.com. That's where you can get into us free. Free access. And please become a member and subscribe on our website so that you can participate next year in all the contests and giveaways that we're going to be doing at the Jesse T Shows, like maybe going to the Academy Awards with us. Yeah! Wouldn't that be cool to be hanging out on one of the red carpet in the top party for the Academy Awards? Seeing all your favorite stars? We got lots of good things coming up next year. www.jessetorero.com. Saying hi and thank you to our sponsors. Win-win-win, real estate and loan firm. If you want to get a house, man, if you want to get a house at a great price, you contact Win-Win-Win. Boy, they will win-win-win for you. And also, if you want a loan, low-interest loan, you got bumped up credit, they'll get you going there too. Win-win-win. Real estate and loan firm, they sponsor the Jesse T Show. Also, Project Tapestry Network, one of the very best nonprofits in Southern California. They're an umbrella network, and they give money to all kinds of great causes, like the Coalition Against Human Trafficking, my cause. Hey, bada bing, bada boom, taking down the evil, as Dan the Man says, those disgusting, sick, varmint scumbags that want to hurt children and women. Give me a sword and give me a shield, and I'll take you where you need to go. Caught, the Coalition Against Human Trafficking. Thank you, Dean Olson, Cindy Cohen, Samantha Cole, Roger Anthony, and so many others for checking out the Jesse T Show across our network, KTNT Radio and TV network. This is Jesse T. I can't help but being me. Hey, the Brown Beauty is off duty. See ya!